Here today. I really wanted to be, but we're going to cruise ahead, and I want you to practice some of this quadratic formula stuff. So fill out these notes, and then I'll give you a practice sheet with a couple problems on it. We're going to start by reviewing the solve by factoring. So basically, remember, you want to get one side equal to 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. So that's minus 10 equals 0. And then we're solving by factoring. That means we have to do the guess and check method here. Okay, so we got the guess and check method. So then, just like we've been working on, we have x and x. Signs are going to be different. So x plus, x minus. And then factors of 10 are 5 and 2. So those actually, that is the right way to factor. I got it on the first try. But then we do the split and solve. So basically it means that we have x plus 5 equals 0, and over here x minus 2 equals 0. So what we do is we solve each of these. So running out of space here, if I subtract 5 from both sides, I'm going to get an x value of negative 5, and I'm going to get an x value when I add 2 to both sides of 2. Okay, so the big thing is there's two answers to these problems where we have a quadratic, or a second degree exponent is what that's called. So I got this thing on here. What would it look like on a graphing calculator? Well, the idea is, I just want to kind of segue this and show this to you real quick. If I had, let me try to get this going here. Hold on. Oh, I gotta do this real quick. Hold on, I gotta hit escape. There we go. So if I had a new document, and this is taking me longer than I thought, and I go to a graph here, I'm just going to type this in. I'm going to type in x squared, because I want you to see this. I can't remember what the problem was. Plus 3x? Sorry, yeah, it was plus 3x. And then minus 10. Alright, so I'm going to graph this real quick. And I just want you to notice this is a quadratic, is what it's called, a parabola. But the big thing I want you to notice is, where it crosses, the x-axis. I can move this around, but you see it crosses at 2 and it crosses at negative 5. Well, those are the answers to the problem. If you notice on here, this crosses at a nice, neat spot. But if I wanted to, I could easily change this problem. And you do that on the calculator by hitting this tab. I'm going to go up to the problem I had here. And if I would easily make this just an 11, let's say, I just changed that number to an 11. Did you see how it moved a little bit? So now it's not exactly there. So if I go tab up, just bear with me, I'll tell you why I'm doing this in a second. 15, I hit enter. Do you see that it's not crossing the x-axis at a nice spot anymore? Okay, well, what that means is you can't factor that problem. There are a lot of problems you can't factor. We know this. If I put a 15 here, and I asked you last chapter to factor this problem, you wouldn't be able to. But as you can clearly see, the parabola still crosses the x-axis. And those are answers to problems, like where they cross the x-axis. So basically, we have to have a different way of solving problems, and that's with the quadratic formula. So I want you to fill this in for your notes here. X is equal to, that means we're going to get answers still. X is equal to the opposite of b, plus or minus, and I know some of you remember this, the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and it's all over 2a. Yes, you will need to memorize that. Yes, you will need to use that. Okay? But here's the thing I don't know if you've ever been talked to about, especially with the term that I'm going to discuss. It's the discriminant. The discriminant is so important because it tells you how many answers you're going to have to a problem. And here's why. I just want you to think about going through a problem. The discriminant, hopefully you can see, is up here in the square root. If we have that actually come out to a positive number, like let's just say it comes out to 25, we all know the square root of 25 is 5, So we have this thing called a plus or minus here. So that means when we find our answers to the problems, we're going to either add that 5 or minus that 5. We're going to get, we're going to get 2 answers to that problem. So if the discriminant ever comes out to a positive value, okay, then there will be 2 solutions to that problem. Well, what if it came out to 0? Okay, if it came out to 0, that means we would have like negative b plus or minus the square root of 0 all over 2a. And I hope you know the square root of 0 is 0. So really when you add 0 or subtract 0, you're not getting a different situation. So if the discriminant ever comes out to 0, there's going to be 1 solution. And I hope you know by now that if you get a negative under a square root, we can't do that problem. So basically if the discriminant comes out to be a negative, then that means there's no solutions to that problem. Now I understand that this is a little bit heavy for you right now on this first day of hearing this stuff, but I will go through all of this a lot, especially when I return, and we'll be talking about that a lot. Okay, so here's the deal. Here's how I have you do problems. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have you, get it set up like this, because all problems have to be in what we call ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form. We got to get it all set up there. But my a is in front, my b is in front, and then my c is here. So I just pull those values off of here. So clearly we can see that my a value is 1 because it's right up here. My b value is 3 because that's in front of the x. And then my c is negative 11. All right? Well, I guarantee you most of you have been taught quadratic formula by just firing it into the formula. I'm not going to teach you that. What I'm going to teach you to do is I'm going to teach you to start with b squared minus 4ac. It's a less intense calculation. It gives us the value of our discriminant. We'll know how many answers there are before we dive into the quadratic formula, and I think you'll like doing the problems that way. So basically what I do is I put a 3 in there because that's my b, minus 4 times my 1 times my negative 11. So I'm finding the discriminant. I've got 9, and then just be very careful. That's minus a negative here, so that's really going to end up being a plus, and then a 44. So 4 times 1 times 11 is 44. So I got 53 for my discriminant. Okay, so what's that mean? Well, now I got to go into the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula says x equals negative b. Well, if I look here, my b value is 3. So negative 3 plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac. Well, guess what? We already found that. So that just goes in here. So before we go to the quadratic formula, that just goes right there. And then that's all over 2a, or 2 times 1. All right, so here's the deal. You always want to try to simplify the radical if you can. Well, 53, believe it or not, is a prime number. Like, I can't come up with any factors to get to 53. 27 times 3 is 51. I can't get anything that's going to work out there. So basically, when I say I want an exact answer and a rounded answer, your exact answer is x equals negative 3 plus or minus square root of 53 all over 2. All right, well, what does that mean? Well, that means if I go to a calculator and I just go to a calculate page, I'm going to try to make this smaller so we're just looking at the calculator here. Whoops. Okay, so all we got to do is we got to type in, exactly what we see there. So negative 3 plus, whoops, I put an answer in there for some reason. Negative 3 plus the square root of 53. And if I go down and I type in my 2, I hit enter, and my rounded answers are 2 point, whoops, I lost it. I think it's 2.14. That's one of my answers. That's it. That's one of my answers. Because what I also could do is I can take, and that's what I like to do, I can just go up and grab it, and then I can pull it down. And the only thing I got to change in there is a minus sign. That's what the plus or minus sign says. Hey, we can add it or we can subtract it. So then I hit enter there, and I get negative 5.14 approximately. So that's the name of the game. That's how we're going to do these problems. Let's try one more together. And then you got 2, I think, on your practice sheet. So when it looks like this, I don't like this at all. I'm going to get this over to that side. So basically by adding x squared to both sides, I'll have x squared minus, I don't know why I just did that, sorry. I'm going to, let me get rid of this. Just talking and not thinking. Okay, so I'm going to get that over there. So I'm going to make a 0 on this side equals, and I'm going to have a positive x squared. Then I'm going to have still a minus 8x and then a plus 2. Okay, so like we were saying yesterday is write them in descending order. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to practice get our discriminant. So a is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 8, and then c is equal to 2. So when I do my discriminant of b squared minus 4ac, I have to put the b in parentheses because I'm going to multiply it by itself. Minus 4 times 1 times 2. So what we got here is we got a good old 64 minus 4 times 2 is 8. So that looks like 56. Okay, so my discriminant this time is 56. Well, when I go try to do my quadratic formula, negative b, so that would actually be 8 plus or minus the square root of 56 all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Well, there's a little different this time. I can actually tower 56 now. I can simplify that. So divide by 2, what do I get here? I got, what, 28? And then I divide by 2, and I get 14. I divide by 2, and I get 7. So remember, we can circle, we can cross. We can actually get 2 root 14 out of that. So x is equal to 8 plus or minus 2 root 14 all over 2, practicing our radicals. But here's the deal, and this is going to come into play a lot. If you can take the same number out, you have to. So I can take a 2 out of everything. So that's going to be a 4, that's going to be a 1, and that's going to be a 1. So actually, when we clean up our exact answers, we have 4 plus or minus just the square root of 14. Now, what is that as a decimal? I'm going to have to go to my calculator and type in 4 plus square root of 14. Hold on, jumped on me. 14, hit enter. I got 7.74. And then the other one will be, again, I'm just going to go up there, drag it down, change that in there to a minus sign, hit enter, and I got 0.26. So I got 0.26. Again, 2 possible answers. All right, so give it your best shot. You do need to memorize the quadratic formula, so start doing that. We'll be quizzing you on that, but try practice sheet 1 now.